Right, I'm pretty sure Alexander Isak is done at Newcastle. There is no chance, there is no way on this planet, heaven, hell, or anything, that Alexander Isak will be playing for Newcastle again. I'm pretty sure he has definitively killed off any chance he has of staying at Newcastle. And that's not a problem by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it's a problem for him. It's not a problem for us. But my God, what a way to go about definitively ending your time in a club. What a way to set about ending your tenure at a club that you've just won a cup at, that you're one of the best strikers in their Premier League history, arguably second behind Alan Shearer. And Alexander Isak has just gone out and completely, I've said it in the title, he's dropped the nuke. He has essentially destroyed every tie he has with Newcastle with one statement, one simple statement, which definitively says to Newcastle, look, I'm done. There is nothing you can do to keep me here. There is nothing you can say that will make me want to stick around. There's nothing that I can be a part of that you will be able to keep me at this club. I am done, and there is nothing you can say about it. I'm trying to find a way to get this to, that's probably the best we're going to do. But yes, Isak is done. Isak is pretty much done with Newcastle now. I will zoom in on this properly, I swear. But welcome back to the channel. I've had to rush to get this set up. So if it seems very sort of thrown together, higgledy-piggledy, all the random stuff, I've been in such a quick rush to try and get back as quick as possible from work to get this set up to discuss this. Because for the life of me, I don't think Isak has said a word regarding any of this. He's not said a word regarding the Newcastle discussion. He's not come out in public. The most we've seen of him is when he's been training alone, when he went to Sociedad and he was training there. We have not heard a peep from Alexander Isak for weeks and weeks and weeks. And finally, he has come out and dropped this bombshell. Obviously, tonight it's the PFA, the Premier League awards. Mo Salah should be getting player of the season if he hasn't already. I've literally just finished work and came straight here. So if anyone can keep me updated with everything on it, that'd be brilliant. And Alexander Isak, who has not attended the awards, he has not made his way there. He is not a part of the festivities, so to speak. He has no tie to it tonight, has issued a statement, a very bold statement, one that's, like I said, it's definitive that this is his time done at Newcastle. I say this, we've seen other players do similar things. I'm maybe blowing this out of perspective because it's someone who's been linked to us. It's someone who may be coming to us. I may be making a bit too much of a big deal out of it. But this was the statement. Salah has also won the PFA Players Award. I mean, it was never in doubt. Best individual Premier League season ever last campaign. I will not hear this Ronaldo 08-09 talk. Mo Salah's 2024-25 season is the greatest individual Premier League season, bar none. 28 goals, 18 assists. Like, there is no competition for that, but we'll come to that shortly, I suppose. We can run through events as they go. But this is Isak's statement, the one that he has released today. I'm proud to be recognised by my fellow professionals with a place in the PFA Premier League team of the season. Well deserved. Best striker in the league last season. I don't think that's pretty much up for debate. I just think Isak was. He just was last season. He was phenomenal. First and foremost, I want to thank my teammates and everyone at Newcastle United who has supported me along the way. Sounds nice. Sounds very positive. I'm not at the ceremony tonight with everything going on. It didn't feel right to be there. I've kept quiet for a long time while others have spoken. That silence has allowed people to push their own version of events, even though they know it doesn't reflect what was really said and agreed behind closed doors. This is, I mean, it's, you know, it's a bit of bite to it. The reality is that promises were made and the club has known my position for a long time. To now act as if these issues are only emerging is misleading. When promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. That's where things are for me right now and why change is in the best interests of everyone, not just myself. I mean, look, Isak is not the first player to do this. Everyone is comparing this to Harry Kane's gentleman agreement that he had with Tottenham. I've made the comparison to Suarez. Obviously, he had his issues back in 2012-13. At the end of that season, he was linked to Arsenal. He was training on his own for a bit, and we came out to him and said, look, stick it out one more season. Just one more campaign. Ronaldo did the same, like I said on the overlap the other day. Isak is not the first player to do this, but it's the most definitive statement. Like I've said that a few times. I can't recall an instance in recent years where such a high-profile player has openly came out and just criticized the club straight away, straight out the blocks. And that's big. I understand there's the Jadon Sancho, like pinning the Erik ten Hag issue at the top of his Twitter and all that bollocks. But this is the first one that I can recall in a long time where a big name player, a high profile player for a club, has come out and definitively said, look, things are not as they seem. This club has promised me things and they are not backing up those promises. What Isak was promised, we will probably never know the full extent of it. We will probably never be able to definitively be told this is what was agreed. This is what's been said. Maybe in the future, I don't know. But it's very clear that Newcastle have said to him, look, you're key for us. You're a massive player. We want you to stick around. Can you give us one more season? Can you get to the end of the season? Maybe they did. I'm curious to know what the agreement was. So by all accounts, this is the issue. So on one hand, you've had reports saying that Isak is apparently, the club have offered them a new contract. The club have offered them X amount of money. We don't know what was agreed with Amanda Staveley when she was there. We don't know what this gentleman agreement, so to speak, with Isak was. Was he promised more wages? Was he promised that he could move to a bigger club? Was he promised, I don't know. Was he promised Madrid? Was he promised Liverpool? Was he promised Bayern? Who knows? Something has been agreed behind the scenes that is not being promised to him. If it's contract and wages, maybe he's been told, look, you're going to get 300 grand a week. Maybe that's not being backed up. We know that's not the contract they offered him, even though they value him at 150 million. Maybe they promised him that he could move to another club, but only for a certain fee. Isak has been told something behind the scenes. And I think this pretty much just says that, look, even if I was to stay at Newcastle, even if he was to remain a Newcastle player, there is no trust there. And if you can't trust the ownership, if you can't trust the club who is in charge of you, if you can't trust the club that you're playing for, what good is that relationship? If they have said to him, look, you can move to a bigger club, and the offers come in and they're still like, oh, actually, we don't want him to, how can he possibly expect to just carry on and get on with it? I understand that he signed a contract. In the modern game, in the modern day, contracts are as worthless as the paper they were written on. Contracts are nothing. They aren't. Like, people will sit here and say, well, he signed a 7-year contract. That's brilliant. He signed a 6-year contract, what have you. They mean nothing. The season we sold Suarez, and I will keep going back to Suarez, 2013-14, the end of that amazing season where we pushed for the league. Suarez signed a new contract in December of that season, midway through the campaign. New contract, said, look, I'm committed. I love this club. I want to stay. He went at the end of the season. It was revealed later on that he was promised earlier on, like the season before, get through one more campaign with us and you can go to your big club. That happened. That was happening regardless. You give the new contract either to up his wages for the last few months he's here to reward him for what he's done, because up until that point he was absolutely flying in the league, or it's just to save face. And if Isak has been promised that he can move to a big club, if he's been promised that he can go to where have you, Liverpool, Bayern, all those clubs that I did say, like, there needs to be an element of trust there, and Isak has not received that. I don't know. I've just clicked the wrong X on the actual thing. It's mental. Fabrizio Romano, Alexander Isak makes his move, and it was always clear since July he only wants Liverpool. He doesn't even want to discuss any option with Newcastle, and never considered Al Hilal despite reports. Liverpool Football Club. That's my one there. Isak on Instagram. It's such a ballsy statement to make, and you've got to commend them to a certain degree. I don't think maybe tonight was the night to do it. Maybe these awards, which are meant to focus on the overall team contribution, PFA Team of the Year, a lot of players are winning awards. Maybe issuing this statement tonight isn't the best thing. Maybe you could have put a post up saying, look, I'm not at the awards because of what's going on right now. Now isn't the time to discuss it. Now isn't the time to go about just like talking about it. All in due course, this will come out. If this is him trying to force the issue and this is him trying to say to Newcastle, look, I will not play for you again. I think he's definitively said that. I think he's openly come out and said, I will not be playing for you again. I only want to move to Liverpool. That's enough. He's not in the team. He's not training with them. He's not involved in any of the plans they've got going at the moment. That should be enough. The statement is, like I said, it's him dropping the nuke. It's him going public with it. And up until now, he's been silent. There's been radio silence from Isak. And the longer this went on and the longer this whole saga has progressed, the more uncertain I've been about whether or not Isak is actually going to come to Liverpool. I'll be honest, the more that this has dragged on, the days and weeks that it's progressed, I have slowly become less and less enthused that he's going to make the move to us, be it Newcastle stubbornness, be it we aren't offering the money they want, be it there's an agent fee, whatever have you. Just something didn't feel right about this, that in my head, in the back of my brain, I just didn't feel like this move was going to happen. Him openly coming out and saying, I have been promised certain things have been agreed and they are not being followed through on, is awful. And this sort of proves what we've said for a while now, that Newcastle's stance, their whole view on this whole thing, is trying to save face, trying to make out like they are a big club. They're a big fish in a big pond. Like they're trying to compete with us. They're trying to compete with City. They're trying to compete with Arsenal and all these other massive Premier League clubs. And when your biggest asset, your most expensive asset, your best player in your team, one of the best strikers in Europe, the best striker in the Premier League last season, officially confirmed at the PFA Awards, is openly saying, I want to stay. They can't roll over. They can't just sit there and show their bellies and let us come in and get them for money. That's just not going to happen. They are trying to save face here. They are trying to lay a marker down to every other player in that team, be it your Tonali, your Guimaraes, your Anthony Gordon, all these other players that are possibly getting linked with moves away and saying, no, you leave on our terms. Because they have done that, because they have had to come out and defend their own stance and say, no, it's 150 million or bust, things like this happen. It was the wrong move by Newcastle. If you've got a player who does not want to be at your club, if you've got a player who has said, I will not play for you again, I'm not training, I don't want any future here at Newcastle, next season I want to be at Anfield, I don't want to be a part of the Gallagher, I want to be part of the Kop, I want to be at Anfield, I want to be winning trophies after trophies, season on season. If you've got a player who's issuing that statement to you as a club, your responsibility is to let him go. Keeping him here now is a daft decision to make. And up until this point, like I said, I've been so... I've said he can come to us, but there's a tiny part of my brain that's been saying I'm not 100% certain. Maybe there is a way back. We've seen other players push for moves who have been out of the club. Wayne Rooney at United was a massive example. There are so many players who have pushed for a move. It hasn't materialised. They've maintained part of the club. Wilfred Zaha did it at Palace for years and years because of his integral importance to that team. Isak, there is no way back for him from this. And Newcastle have a responsibility to sell him, albeit they don't want to sell him to a Premier League rival. Completely get it. I understand that. But with the only option on the table, he doesn't want to be there. While you've still got 2 weeks left of this window, reinvest that money, reinvest in even more depth in your midfield. I know they've just signed Jacob Ramsey from Villa. I understand they've done that, but they need more depth for centre-back. They're in the Champions League next season. Sell him and push the club in a positive direction again. Keeping him there when he doesn't want to be there is not good for morale. It's not good for those around him. It's not good for the club as a whole. There is no benefit of keeping him there because you are cutting off your nose to spite your face. Take whatever money is being offered, get him out the door, use the money to invest elsewhere. You are not saving face at this point because even though you have said 150 million or bust, you've got the player openly revolting against your club. And this is saying to the public that Newcastle aren't a big club. This is him coming out and saying Newcastle are poorly ran. Newcastle are not as big a club as the other Premier League teams. He is nuking the foundations of Newcastle with this statement and putting it out to the world. They are not as big as they like to see, and they are in modern days. Yes, they've got money, which they can't spend, admittedly. Yes, they've had this massive takeover. But this is poor from them. You don't see players doing this at Liverpool. You don't see players doing this at City. You don't see players doing this at Arsenal in the modern day, in like the past few years. United, yeah, they've had their issues, but they're a basket case of a club. The big clubs, you do not see this happen, bar Mbappe at PSG. Newcastle at the moment are a small fish in a big pond. They are pushing for top 4 on a consistent basis, or they want to be. They want to be fighting for the league title. When you've got these big players who want to make the move away and have made it so very publicly clear they want no part of what you're building, keeping them there to save face, to make it look like you're competing against these big teams, to have the name there or whatever have you, is a poor decision, and it cannot go well for them in any way, shape, or form. If Newcastle broke promises and being stubborn is going to ruin Newcastle's reputation, I don't blame Isak for doing this. And that's what I'm saying. If this is doing Newcastle no favors, he's not going to play for you again. As he's shown in the first game against Aston Villa, as he's shown in pre-season towards the end, if he doesn't want to play, he is not going to play. He is going to rot in the reserves, out of the team entirely, costing copious amounts of money. He's on a long-term contract. He's getting paid astronomical wages by Newcastle standards, and he's not going to play. Or you can sell him, reinvest in that squad, which we saw 2 years ago in the Champions League. Newcastle, the minute injuries come into it, and they will, they are going to capitulate, and their season is going to go down the drain. They've got to strengthen this season if they want to make a push for any competition again. They did it in the Carabao Cup last season. There was no Europe. People stayed fit. Isak was firing on all cylinders. They managed to get a good campaign going, a bit of momentum, and they won a trophy, and they've qualified for Champions League. That's brilliant. The odds of that happening now that they're in the Champions League again is little to none. And I just think if I was a Newcastle owner right now, and you've got this, if I work in a place, I'm one of the managers. If someone doesn't want to be there, and someone is putting up a fuss and kicking up a fuss and doesn't want to be a part of it, fine, go. There are other people out there, maybe not to Isak standards, and we had that with Suarez. When Suarez left us, we had to go through 2-3 years of Ricky Lambert, Balotelli's. I always come back to these seasons. Ricky Lambert, Balotelli's. We had to go through the Brendan Rodgers late era against like Christian Benteke and Fabio Borini and Markovic. You've got to do that to find what works for you. They have got to go through that rough patch. If you want to develop and build, you've got to reinvest in the whole squad. Selling Coutinho to us was a big blow. We used it to get Van Dijk. We used it to get Alisson and strengthen in key areas of the pitch. Newcastle know they need a goalkeeper. Yes, they've signed Aaron Ramsdale on loan. That's not going to last forever. That's a temporary solution. They need depth at centre-back. They need depth in midfield. They need strikers. Just get rid of the person who's not going to be playing for you next season and put that money to better use in other parts of the pitch. And with so many players rejecting Newcastle at this point in time, they're only making things worse for themselves. Not only are they forcing Isak to stay, but they're showing they aren't big enough to attract other players. It's true. They aren't attracting the players they want. Newcastle right now are going through that awful spell that we did, where you, in your mind, you're a huge club, and Liverpool were a huge club. I'm talking about like the sort of early 2010s, that sort of period of time, where you think name value will get us through this. It doesn't necessarily work. You've got to prove that you're competing at the top level. Yes, they won the Carabao Cup. Brilliant. Portsmouth won the FA Cup in 2008, and from then it went downhill. Teams win trophies. It doesn't necessarily mean that winning a League Cup, which anyone can pretty much win in a season if you get the right fixtures and fitness and blah, 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 doesn't mean a lot. They've then gone into the Champions League and they're recruiting so poorly. And the reason teams are rejecting them is because you look at the other sides around them that are going for those same type of players. Mbeumo, yeah, United aren't in Champions League next season, but they've got a bigger pull. It's Manchester United. James Trafford, City or Newcastle. He's going to go City. Cunha, United again. Newcastle. João Pedro, Newcastle or Chelsea, both in Champions League next season. There's more, not opportunities at Chelsea, but there's probably a bit more attractive quality to it. Newcastle only have a certain amount of pull, and it's not doing them any favours at the moment. So why doesn't Isak put a transfer request in then? I think he probably has. It's just the news hasn't been made public. He probably has put the transfer request in, but if the club says no, they wouldn't be entertaining the offers. They wouldn't be saying, right, 150 million if there wasn't some sort of request. Just because you put a transfer request in doesn't mean that magically the transfer value decreases. He'll have put a request in, but the club aren't going to make that public because up until this point, they have done everything in their power to maintain Isak's a Newcastle player, it's disappointing, but we may be able to turn his head. Now that he's done this, I guarantee in the next day or two, the reports will come out saying Isak's put in a transfer request because Newcastle know now there is no way to come back. There is no chance of him coming back. suddenly in the next 24 to 48 hours, the transfer request news will come out, and that will be the big talking point about this. Hello, Lou. Love your videos. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Click a like if you haven't already, and subscribe if you haven't already. But thank you. I really appreciate that. Jamie Gallagher, that caught me a little bit off guard then. Newcastle are in no-win situation here. If he stays, you allow yourselves to be made a mockery by a player who's under contract with you. If he leaves, then it forces the narrative you aren't big boys. I think keeping him forces that same narrative. I think you keep him there, you're going to have this big name player who doesn't want to be at the club, and other players around him are going to start talking. How long before Sandro Tonali, this player who left AC Milan, not of his own volition, of course, has gone to Newcastle, how long before he starts saying, is this the club for me? Bruno Guimaraes, one of the best midfielders, arguably in the Premier League. How long before he starts talking about things? How long before Livramento, one of the most up-and-coming fullbacks in the Premier League, starts saying, this isn't for me? And Anthony Gordon, who was getting linked with a move away last season. How long before these quality of players start to say, this club is not for me? This is not the place I want to continue to develop and progress my career. Selling him doesn't make you look like big club. And again, I've said it a billion times. We had it with Suarez. We weren't a big enough club for him at that point. Bold statement to say, no player's bigger than club. But you know what I mean? To match his ambition, we weren't competing in the Champions League until the season after he'd left. We weren't pushing for the league until that one season where he put in a phenomenal campaign. And people may think that if they keep Isak, they will get that level of performance. The reason we got that level of performance out of Suarez, because he knew he was leaving at the end of the season. He knew definitively that he was going at the end of that season. Maybe last campaign, Isak, he's just won the PFA award, striker in the PFA team of the season. Maybe that was his swan song campaign last year. Maybe he said to the club, end of 24-25, I want out. And that's why he's put in that phenomenal campaign. And now they turn around and said, well, no, you're too important. Who knows? Genuinely, who knows? This could just be a complete mismanagement. And I'm not going to definitively sit here and say that Isak's completely in the right. He's contracted. Like, if he doesn't want to be at the club, fine. Make your statement heard, which he's done very publicly now. But he is contracted down. And I don't agree with this narrative of, I'm not playing, I'm not training, blah, blah, blah. It is a concern for me that if we get Isak and say a couple of years down the line, Real Madrid come in, Barcelona come in, is he going to play the same thing with us? Is he going to have this same mindset if he was to move to us? Will Isak a few years down the line say to Liverpool, I'm not playing, I want to go elsewhere, drop me? And then we'll feel the same repercussions that Newcastle are. It does say a lot that this is his personality. But is this a byproduct of the Newcastle ownership saying to him, you can leave at the end of the season, and that's why he's reacting like this? If you're promised something and told definitively you are going to Liverpool at the end of the season, you are going to Barcelona, you're going to Real Madrid, wherever have you, only to be told, no, you're staying here, but not being offered the wages that you think you're entitled to, maybe that's the wrong word, but the wages you're worth, maybe you would act like this. Maybe you would have this response. But it does say a lot about his character. And there are concerns in my head that if we do get Isak, is he going to pull this same move to us a few years down the line? We saw it with Coutinho. We saw it with Torres. We saw it with Sterling. So many players in our past have thrown their toys out the pram, gone on the radio, refused to train, faked injuries. We've had the lot over the past 2 decades. Is this something that Isak is going to do further down the line? Are we going to see that sort of rinse and repeat cycle of another big name player come in who we know has personality conflict issues, whatever have you? Is he then going to throw his toys out the pram down the line and do the same sort of thing? I'm not 100% certain, but it is something that we do need to think about in that regard. Do I still think we will get Isak? I feel like now we kind of, we need to now. If we don't get Isak now, we're dropping the ball majorly. If we don't sign Alexander Isak, we have fucked up, quite frankly. The transfer is there to be made. We are there, and we've been there for months. And he has openly said to the club, I will not be here. I do not want to be here. If we don't follow through with that and we don't put the bid in and get Alexander Isak, that is a failing on our part because there's nothing else he can do at this point. Like I said before, there's a comment saying, why didn't he put a transfer request in? He might have. And I don't think there's much more he can do to force the issue. If I was him, I'd leave it at this now. Just stop it flat. Don't continue to push. Let us come in now with the bid. The more he pushes, I just think this is going to backfire somehow. And it's probably my pessimistic outcome on it. We have to go out and make this deal happen. We've got to get Isak now. There is no excuse for it not to happen. And I think that the more he's pushed, he's got to the point now where Newcastle's valuation is going to decrease. It's got to get done. There is a world where you can fit Ekitike and Isak in the same side. I've said it several times. There is a tactical way you can do it. We've got a lot of games coming up. Rotation's going to be massive. Am I shocked that he's put this statement out? Maybe a bit. I didn't think this was how he was going to address the issue. I was expecting some sort of sit down, that Harry Kane golf video style thing. And I'm a little bit surprised that this is the manner of which he's came out and done it. Maybe tonight, like I said before, wasn't the night to do it. Maybe just put a statement out, a post saying, look, tonight's not tonight to discuss it. We will get there shortly. But just so you know, things behind the scenes aren't what they seem. Blah, blah, blah. Like, you don't need to go into this much detail of your Isak. I get why he's done it. I completely sympathize with him to that degree. But if this was one of our players, I'd be saying, right, fucking out the door with you. I don't want you here. If you don't want to be here this bad, off you pop. It's nothing to do with me. I think it's going to happen. Isak will be Liverpool's new number 9. It's waiting for him to take up. And I think Slot knows it. I think Van Dijk knows it. I think the club hierarchy knows it. The deal now the ball is in our court. We've got to make this happen. We've got to get this deal done. There is no excuse now. The only way that I think this falls through at the minute is Newcastle stick to their valuation, which is daft, beyond daft at this point. If they're so adamant of making £150 million, you are cutting off your nose to spite your face. The only other way I can see this possibly falling through is Liverpool decide that the money is too high last minute and they're reinvesting elsewhere. I know Gahey's apparently speeding up. We just got Leone. Isak will be like the final outcome. But again, I can't see that one really happening. We've made about 220 million in player sales. We spent about 300 odd million, something like that. So yeah, I can't see that one happening. I think the only way this falls through is Newcastle decide to play hardball, make out like they're a huge club, which again, they're not. Just because you've got money doesn't make you a huge club. And yeah, try and save face, keep Isak there, force the hand of us and say, no, he's staying, and he will not play for them again. He will not play in this team again. Even at a push, I don't think you can make him be a part of it. When Harry Kane did that whole interview where he was like, it's a gentleman's agreement and blah, 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 blah. Did he stay at the club like one more season? I'm sure he did. But even at the beginning, then he didn't attend training. I don't think Isak can, though, because this is so much more than what Harry Kane did. This is a proper come out and slander the club statement, which Kane didn't really do. He just said there's a gentleman's agreement that's not been honoured. Isak's come out and basically said, look, they're talking bollocks. They are saying this, and that's not what's being said. And even saying at the end of it, like, it's best if I move on. It's in our hands to make the deal happen, but it's in Newcastle's hands whether or not they accept it or not. And I think they will come down from 150 million, but they're not going to just give them up. That's not going to happen. I think Isak said something to Van Dijk in the League Cup final. I think that was the start of this saga. Yeah, there was a lot of people saying about that. There was a lot of people commenting on Isak's conversation that he was having with Van Dijk, in that Carabao Cup final. He was basically, we don't know what's been said. Nothing has been definitively put out there. No one's said anything, but I'd be curious what was actually discussed in that conversation. This is just Fabrizio's tweet. It's basically what Isak said before. Isak releases a statement. When promise is broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. I don't know. It's a mental situation. And to an extent, if you're Newcastle, you've offered him a lot this season. You've done a great deal of work, winning the Carabao Cup, their first trophy in 70 years, reaching the Champions League again when, let's be honest, I don't think many people gave them a shout at doing it. And they've gone out and smashed it last season. They really, really have. Maybe they thought they'd be able to tempt them, but it's obvious he doesn't want to be a part of it. It's obvious that he doesn't want to be anything to do with it. And yeah, because whatever he said to Van Dijk really shocked him or pleasantly surprised him. I think Isak whispered to him and just said, I'm gonna join Liverpool next season. And why wouldn't you want to? It's the best club in England. We are the most successful club in the history of English football. Of course he'd want to join us. Why wouldn't you? Last, final thoughts on, do I think we'll get Isak? Yes, I do now. I'm now completely adamant that this is going to happen. There's no other club who are in for him. There is no one that he wants to go to. He has dropped the nuke, destroyed his career now at Newcastle. There is nothing out left for him at the club anymore. We've seen bigger players at other clubs have worse situations who have then come out and said worse things, and they've managed to come back, I suppose. But this is it. This is him done. Now I am convinced that Alexander Isak will come to Liverpool. But let me know in the comments, do you think that Isak will leave Newcastle? Do you think he'll come to us? What do you make of this whole statement debacle? Because it's entertaining to me. I'm not going to lie. Sorry, Newcastle, but it just is. Let me know what you think. And if you could, guys, please make sure to click subscribe. We've finally reached 5,000, which is mental. 5,000 subscribers is huge, huge for me. I want to try and get to 10,000. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all soon.